Chapter 10. Forward Thinking. Mr. Rowland was preparing to address the entire school faculty in the library. Chairs were seated in 2 rows amongst the seemingly endless shelves of books, and tables with computers connected to the internet. He poked his finger under his collar of his white shirt with red pinstripe design, pulling away from his body his wine-coloured tie, trying to relieve the pressure around his neck in an attempt to vent some of the heat and cool down. He coughed to clear his throat, to imply he was ready to start. He had not been the headmaster for even a year, and he was very nervous when it came to teacher meetings. He felt he was being judged, and he was right to feel paranoid. He had got the job in a shock decision over other members of staff, and no explanation as to why he had been given it. Timothy Rowland knew from the start that no matter how he explained or conveyed the facts, the outcome was always going to be the same. This assembly was not destined to end well. Budget cuts were never a popular topic of conversation, but they had to be discussed, and everyone had to be informed on how they would be affected. Acutely aware of the sensitivity of the subject, he had taken the diplomatic decision and left it to last, hoping the teachers wouldn't make too much of an issue out of the results, as they would be eager to get home. There was, after all, some good news about extra funds the school had been lucky to procure. Every department was keen to find out if they were going to benefit, but in all situations, if there is to be a winner, there must be a loser, and everyone had a strong hunch where the extra funds would be going. "While we're still young," bellowed Gary Tyler, the PE teacher, from the back. Mr. Rowland was still waiting for the chatter to subside, but took a calming breath as he turned to face his audience and began. Reading over the minutes from the last meeting, he spoke slowly and precisely, not wanting to muddle his words, as that would give a certain teacher in the back row an opportunity to make unhelpful remarks. He painstakingly dragged out the matters on the agenda, occasionally stopping to wipe his glasses free from sweat as they kept riding down his nose. The meeting had gone on for over an hour, and his method of stalling seemed to be paying off, as he saw some feet twitching anxiously, and 2 teachers, Aggie Smith, a science teacher, who wore her dyed black hair in bunches, and Julie Frost, a short blonde who taught food technology, had to excuse themselves as they had young children to look after and needed to leave early. However, the moment had arrived and there was no going back now, as he revealed what was going to happen with the extra funds. "It has come to my attention, as a teacher over the years, and even more as a headmaster over the last 7 months, that we are just about keeping our head above water financially," he truthfully told his congregation, informing them of the bare facts in a vain attempt to attract sympathizers. "We plod along surviving, and this is the time we need to change that." He now braced himself for the volcano of anger that was about to erupt, but aiming to sound sure and confident, he announced, "That is why the majority of the money in the budget will be allocated to the school's art department." Every teacher in the room went deathly silent, and in unison turned their heads in the direction of Gary Tyler. At the end of the first row of chairs, grinning from ear to ear, her cheeks bulging, Miss Cockleton sat. She exclaimed excitedly, "Trib on!" and clapped her small plump hands together rapidly. But she was alone in celebration. The other teachers sat nervously, thinking this was some kind of practical joke. "Forward thinking," Mr. Rowland called it, as he proceeded to tell his shocked and uneasy congregation the details of Miss Cockleton's plan to grasp a golden opportunity, to make an investment that would reap benefits for the school. The art department was always in a sorry state of affairs, still without a working kiln, a limited supply of paint, and a paper shortage so severe that the students had to bring their own. It was in dire need of a serious cash injection. Being given only a small percentage of funds, the school used the money to replenish art supplies, but these were soon quickly consumed, and once again the art department was back to square one. The plan was simple. Miss Cockleton had found a barely used, top-of-the-range second-hand kiln for a third of the price. The seller was willing to include a wide array of paints, brushes, and other apparatus, all for free. The only problem was, the vendor wanted the equipment gone and the money straight away, and the art teacher had no way of raising that sort of capital by herself. Sealing this deal meant that in one fell swoop, all the art department's problems would be solved and wouldn't need any more funding for the foreseeable future. Additional budgets for art could be spent elsewhere, and there would be more money to go round, but this meant that all current remaining finances would have to be depleted in order to buy the bargain-priced equipment. The school's football team would have to forego their new team kits. Mr. Rowland was surprised to see almost all the educators were nodding in agreement. Bearing in mind the plan's potential, the meeting had gone better than he had ever expected. "Any other business?" he asked. The crowd shook their heads, got up and hastily evacuated the premises, just as Mr. Rowland hoped. But when he saw Mr. Tyler just slumped on his seat, wearing his branded tracksuit and trainers, staring directly at him, he realised it wasn't going to be that easy. The staff weren't desperate to get home, they were running for cover. The Rottweiler was like a time bomb, and his left eyelid flickered. The headmaster could tell that this time bomb was ticking and about to detonate. Only 3 people remained in the library. Now the atmosphere around him started to feel even hotter. Mr. Rowland removed his noose-like tie, but this did nothing to quell the heat as it continued to surge through his body, up to his face, making him feel slightly lightheaded and ill with dread. Ramming the chair directly in front of him over to one side, the rest of the row of chairs followed, screeching across the ground like nails on a chalkboard, and Mr. Tyler, with an unimpressed expression, locked onto the headmaster's position and strode over to stand face to face with his betrayer. "Oi, Rowland!" he yelled in an unnecessary volume, as the headmaster was only half a metre away. "There's no way I'm letting you get away with this. You promised me new football kits, and you better deliver." Attempting to soothe the savage beast, Mr. Rowland apologised. "An opportunity like this does not present itself every day. You will get your kits, I will keep my promise, but it will have to be at a later date than scheduled." With no sign of the two backing down from this conflict of interest, Mr. Tyler reminded the headmaster that all his predecessors respected him as an asset, and the day he arrived at Darwin Grammar was the day the school started to win trophies and gain recognition. Revolted by the manner of being brushed off with a phony excuse, Mr. Tyler had some words of wisdom he felt he needed to share. "I'm sick and tired of making you look good. It's all thanks to me you get pupils flocking to this school instead of that pretentious Rivermouth Academy." His veins were now beginning to stand to attention on the large bald areas of his head, and he then turned in the direction of Miss Cockleton. "Why do you actually care? In a few months' time, you won't even be here. It won't benefit you." Awash in colour from her bright ensemble, Miss Cockleton politely smiled, causing the creases in her face to become more noticeable. "Art is not a privilege, it's a right, and just knowing the students have these amenities accessible to them will start my retirement off with a bang." Being a non-lover of art, this declaration had no impact on the Rottweiler's mood. "Why do you need a kiln anyway?" he barked, and then answering his own question, "You start getting the kids to make ashtrays, then what? They'll start smoking." "I hardly believe ceramics will inspire a nation of children to start smoking," Miss Cockleton reassured him optimistically. "Well, if you ask me, it's a slippery slope. Next thing you know, like Van Gogh, they'll be cutting an ear off," Mr. Tyler suggested, warning the pair. "These kids need discipline. We live in a cruel world. It's dog-eat-dog out there, and they need to understand that." The atmosphere in the room turned into an uneasy silence, but this peace was like the calm before the storm, and was soon shattered when the headmaster made a suggestion. If he wanted new football kits that badly, then he should make the effort to raise the funds himself, like the other teachers had to. "Why not have a cake sale? That's a great way to make money, just like the art and history departments did a couple of months ago for the museum trip," he suggested. Growls of anger came protruding from the Rottweiler's nostrils as he moved up another level on his scale of anger. "And look how well that turned out," now unleashing a verbal mocking assault. "One girl got stabbed, and the other ended up with a dent in her forehead the size of the Grand Canyon." He and his team of boys were heroes at the school, and strongly believed they should be treated in accordance, and not reduced to icing French fancies in their spare time. "Oh, they don't have to bake," Miss Cockleton contemplated. "They can make those chocolate crispy treats instead. I like them." The physical education teacher had been pushed to the edge of his tolerance level. "I bet you do," he snapped. "That's enough," the headmaster roared, finding his inner voice, which shocked everyone, especially himself. "I will not have a member of my staff speaking to another like that in my school. Or would you prefer to work somewhere else?" The art teacher's weight had indeed ballooned recently. She had also treated herself to many beauty therapies. From beneath the white velvet beret, wisps of bleach blonde highlights surrounded her face. A sun-kissed spray-tan glow lit up her skin, and her fingernails glistened with a coat of peach-colour nail varnish. "It's fine, Timothy," Miss Cockleton said, taking no offence. Empathising with the great struggling artists of the past, being ridiculed and scoffed for her styles and mannerisms. Those closed-minded individuals lacked perspective. Records never remembered the names of these finger-pointers and naysayers. They ended up washed away in a sea of history, while even after death, pioneers continued on to inspire numerous generations. Now that was a legacy she could only dream of. "I suppose it's true, I have put on a little bit of weight over these last few weeks, but at my time of life, I need no excuse to spoil myself. I am almost a dame de loisir," which loosely translated, even though badly pronounced in her northern dialect, as a lady of leisure. "It's just like the French say, carpe diem, seize the day." "That's Latin," Mr. Tyler said, shaking his head shamefully. Fighting a losing battle, the Rottweiler gave in, but he had most certainly not lost the war. As he turned to go, his arm rubbed against the table, knocking over a pile of returned books, sending Miss Cockleton's paperwork, with all the details of the new kiln and itemised list of extra items, crashing to the varnished wooden floor. "Oops," he said in a fake tone, strutting over to the library's wide double-glass doors. "Do you want to know why you got this lousy job and I didn't?" The headmaster shrugged his shoulders, conveying that he did not know, doubting that his opponent knew either. "It's because you're more likeable. The students feel they're on a level foothold with you," he enlightened Mr. Rowland. "That's it. I'm the more qualified, but it all came down to a popularity contest. It's certainly not due to your appalling leadership skills." So that was the reason he got the job and shocked the entire faculty, but this had the reverse effect on what Mr. Tyler was hoping for. With his ego boosted in the knowledge that his positive character alone had got him the job, he decided if the Rottweiler wanted to act like a child, then he would speak to him like one. "Like it or not, I'm not the other headmaster," bowing down to the demands of the PE department, now turning his speech into a lecture. "The school has to be run like a business, and it's thanks to Tilly that you'll be able to have your new team kits and better sports equipment." The headmaster now raised a hand and wagged his index finger, telling him off. "But not just yet. This is a win-win situation. You must be patient." Shaking his finger, he might as well have smacked Mr. Tyler in the face. The Rottweiler was not going to let this slide. This was the ultimate insult. Eyeing up the pair, he sealed away his temper and brought the volume of his speech back down to a civilized level. "Conspiring against me? You'll both regret this." Now backing out of the door, not wanting to break eye contact. "My day will come, and I'll make you pay. Mark my words."